I'm Dr. Scott Forbes. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Physical Education Studies within the Faculty of Education. And my area of research is looking at nutritional and exercise interventions to enhance muscle, bone, and also brain function as well. And the areas that I teach is I teach anatomy, exercise physiology, biomechanics. I've also taught resistance training and health education. Yeah, so I think originally I got excited about kind of the area of physical education or kinesiology just because I was an athlete. So I wanted to understand how to enhance my exercise performance. And so this was kind of a logical step, was to become more educated in that particular field. So I started out my undergrad degree at the University of Saskatchewan studying kinesiology. And then I actually did a master's degree there as well. And eventually I went to the University of Alberta and completed a PhD. Yeah, so I actually started out my undergraduate degree just because I needed to do something. It wasn't until my fourth year when I was actually provided an opportunity to do a research study. And then I conducted a research study in the area of exercise physiology. And I got really excited about that particular topic. And I got excited about research. And then I decided, okay, let's continue on. So I just did a master's degree in kinesiology and just haven't stopped since then. And I should also say, throughout my undergrad, I actually was majoring in psychology, and I wanted to study sports psychology and maybe do research in sports psychology, but kind of near the end of my degree, like I said, I was given that opportunity to study exercise physiology. And I just got connected and attracted to that. And so it's good to try new things. And that was a great learning experience for me. Yeah, I would say that it has a huge impact. So studying exercise, it has a phenomenal impact on our health. And just finding out, what's the best type of exercise, or does it matter if you perform strength training or aerobic exercise? Which one is really the best to enhance your overall health? And there's some pretty cool research coming out with regards to that, suggesting that, for example, strength training can reduce your risk of getting cancer, whereas we know aerobic exercise, things like going for a walk, can actually reduce your risk of getting cardiovascular disease. So that's pretty cool and pretty exciting from my perspective. Yeah, I would also say that our research and what we do and study is really easily applied to the real world. Whereas some researchers study rats or cell cultures or different types of things, I'm happy to study humans. Obviously that can be applied to our lives almost immediately. So there's always challenges to things. I think research is a relatively slow process, so that's always a challenge. You have to write grants to get the money, and then you get the money, then you got to do ethics, and all those things take time. So I would say it's definitely a bit of a challenge. But I think it's an important part of the research process as well. If you speed things up too quickly, you tend to make mistakes, and research is a slow process, but it's also important to get things right as well. Conducting human research is often a challenge. Just connecting with participants, getting individuals to come to the lab, for example, and to get tested. Sometimes in my research background, we've taken blood samples and muscle biopsies. So those are pretty invasive things that people generally don't want to do. So there's definitely been some challenges, but also with those challenges comes a lot of really exciting advances in the world of science. Yeah, I would say there's definitely a lot of opportunities, especially in the exercise science world, based off of technology. You can track distance, acceleration, velocity, basically whatever you want, a lot easier nowadays than it was, I would say, previously. Even measuring, for example, we measure oxygen consumption, so that's associated with your aerobic system. Again, we can measure that quite easily in the lab. So there's definitely been huge advantages in with regards to technology. I would say a problem is sometimes we have too much information, and just knowing how to interpret that information is sometimes a challenge. And then also, I think in science, we always need to look at the reliability and validity of things. So reliability is just, if you use that device once and measure something, can it be repeated over time? And that's an important thing to understand. And I think oftentimes we get so caught up with technology and new gadgets that we forget some of those basic things, like how reliable is this device? For example, smartwatches. People are using that to track calories and how much energy they're expending throughout a day. But do people actually understand how reliable those things are? So data is starting to come out now to look at the reliability of those things, and some watches are better than others. That's just one example. Times like Polar, for example, they don't give you the formula that they use to calculate energy expenditure or calories burned. So you have to basically just trust them. But as a scientist, we don't like to trust anything. And we like to look at the data. And so that's definitely a challenge for sure at times. But again, there's so many kind of advantages to measuring with technology to measure different things. For example, in our lab, we have an ultrasound machine to measure muscle thickness, which is pretty cool. So similar to if somebody was pregnant, an ultrasound to look at a baby. We use that, but we're not interested in babies. We're actually interested in muscle thickness. And we can look at small changes in muscle size by using this kind of advanced tools or equipment in our laboratory. So there's definitely advantages to some technology for sure. I'm an exercise physiologist, and we look at different things to enhance health. And we know, for example, that exercise has a profound effect on health and performance. We know that eating real food, for example, from a nutrition perspective, that can have a profound effect on our health. Getting sufficient sleep has a profound effect on our health and potentially can enhance exercise performance. What I think is actually pretty interesting, and it's actually not my area of expertise, is trying to find out why people are not engaging in those behaviors. We know exercise is so important, yet only 15% of the adult population is actually meeting the physical activity guidelines. So to me, that's mind-boggling, and I'm encouraging anybody who wants to get involved with research or a particular study, perhaps to look at behavior change and why are people either engaging in physical activity, or if people are not engaging in physical activity, how can we actually get them to engage in physical activity? I would say my particular research has evolved a little bit. I started out really focused on sport nutrition and trying to enhance sport performance. And I've actually kind of merged into a little bit more clinical research. So looking at not only nutritional and exercise interventions to enhance athletic performance, but now I'm actually doing research looking at nutritional and exercise interventions to enhance older adults, and can we improve their function as they age, but taking technology and applying it to those different populations, I think is pretty cool. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunities that are opening up in our field, which is obviously really exciting. So yeah, I like trying new things. So a lot of my research is focused on muscle performance. So trying to, again, just give different nutritional interventions or supplements. I've studied creatine quite a bit. And if you combine creatine with resistance training, you can get bigger and stronger muscles. We know that that was quite popular in bodybuilders, but now we've actually shown in older adults, so again, a little bit more clinical population, that it can enhance muscle mass, strength, which is a problem in older adults. As you age, you tend to lose those things. So if you can maintain those things, you can maintain function and live a healthier life. So yeah, it's definitely evolved from sport performance to that clinical side. With regards to psychology, that was kind of an interest of mine before I got into research. But I would say I've also been interested in not only muscle performance, but I've actually gotten into some research looking at the effects of exercise and nutrition on bone health. So how can we make our bones stronger? And I've also done some research looking at the effects of exercise and nutrition, things like creatine, on your brain. So maybe coming back to those psychology interests that I had as an undergrad, but can you make your brain either process information faster or react faster, which again could be important for sport performance, but could be important for older adults as well. And yeah, I've had an interest in that particular area as well. So it's definitely evolved over time, and starting from muscle performance to bone health to brain health, and we'll see what happens next. Recently, I've been, I say recently, but probably the last 10 years or so, I've really been studying creatine quite a bit. And it seems like when you combine creatine with exercise, that it can enhance muscle function, which is a benefit again for younger and older individuals. But there's also evidence that it can enhance bone as well and brain function. It can almost influence every cell of the body. And there's a couple papers that were recently published that said it could potentially be a benefit for pregnant women. It could be a benefit for depression. And so there's all these kind of clinical benefits of creatine supplementation. So for me, that's really exciting. And yeah, hopefully we can continue to conduct creatine research, because there's just seems like there's almost endless benefits to it. Hopefully at some point everyone has a pepper shaker on their table, a salt shaker, and a creatine shaker, because I actually believe that there's a lot of benefits to creatine supplementation. Again, as I mentioned, for muscle, bone, and brain health, and a variety of other potential benefits as well. That's on top of exercising regularly, eating real food, and getting sufficient sleep. Yeah, so I've been fortunate to be really successful in the research world, and particularly in the creatine world. I would say probably one of my proudest achievements is I was recently invited to be on a paper where we talked about all the misconceptions associated with creatine supplementation. But on that paper was probably the top experts in the world on creatine supplementation. So to me, to be invited onto that paper was was pretty huge, and I was really excited. There was people from Brazil, the University of Sao Paulo, the Mayo Clinic in the US, in University of Florida, all over the world. And it was pretty cool for somebody from Brandon University to be invited to participate on that paper. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, that paper has now been published, and yeah, I think a lot of people are really interested in that particular paper. So that was a proud moment for me, for sure. It was published in the Journal of the International Society of Sport Nutrition. It's called Common Questions and Misconceptions About Creatine Supplementation. What does the scientific evidence really show? So that's the title of the paper. And it's an open access paper, which means if you just Google search that title, you can actually pull up the PDF and read that paper. I really enjoy teaching. Before my position here, I was actually a college professor, and I engaged in research, but not nearly to the extent that I engage in research right now. So at a college, there was a little bit more teaching involved there. And at the university, slightly less teaching. There's still a lot of teaching, but I've made some really good collaborations here, which is, I think, really important to stay in the research world and to continue to be successful in research. So I've actually collaborated on papers with professors at the University of Regina, University of Manitoba, University of Saskatchewan, UBC, and actually all over the world as well. So I mentioned previously that I've collaborated with people from scientists from the Mayo Clinic, University of North Carolina, all the way over to Iran. I've actually collaborated on papers with, so which has been super cool and exciting from my perspective. I really enjoyed that opportunity, and I enjoy educating individuals about the benefits of all these things like exercise and nutrition. So that's really attracted me to see students learning this information and going on to fields. I've had some of my students become physiotherapists or occupational therapists. That's pretty cool, but also been successful in a variety of other ways as personal trainers, as kinesiologists. Yeah, there's a lot of different opportunities. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of benefits to Brandon University. So for me personally, it was just a step up in my career from a college position to a university position. But there was definitely some things that attracted me here. One, there's other researchers that study muscle performance. So there's another professor, Dr. Joel Krentz, in our department, who's also does research and a great scientist. And then I think one really cool thing from our department is that athletics and the academics are actually very close with each other. They're across the hall from me, and we communicate and collaborate quite a bit. So that attracted me here as well. So as somebody that studies sports science, that was a big interest and a big pull for me. So at bigger institutions, athletics and the academics are completely separate. So even if you have the top sport nutritionists in the world at the University of Saskatchewan, they're probably not talking with the basketball coach or the volleyball coach that often, if ever. Whereas here, we actually communicate and collaborate quite a bit. So that was a pretty cool thing. And then obviously just being at a smaller university, you connect with the students a lot more, which again, I think is a really enjoyable part of my job and something that I really appreciate here. So I'm speaking on behalf of the students, but I think one thing is just finding a path. If you look at exercise science, for example, or physical education, it's so broad that I think it's a challenge for sure for students to figure out do I want to do, the fitness stream? Do I want to study exercise physiology and exercise science? Do I want to become a physical education teacher? Do I want to study sport and recreation? So I think that's definitely a challenge for students, especially for the first couple of years, just to try to find their way in this world and what really connects with them and what's going to be a passion for them. Yeah, I would say for students just to be open-minded and take a variety of classes. For example, take some psychology classes, take some biology classes, take some sociology classes, and just see where your interests are. So that's what I kind of mean by trying different things. And then in my particular case, I focused on muscle performance and muscle health. And now I've realized that, there's more to the body than just muscles. And it's actually been really cool to look at other parts of the body, like bone health and brain health, and kind of dip my toe in those areas of research, because it's really fascinating, and it's definitely challenged me, but it's been a pretty cool experience. Yeah, so I would suggest that individuals try going to conferences. So if you can go to conferences, you can see experts speak and a variety of different topics and fields, and I think you can really gain a lot of knowledge from attending a conference. And it's pretty cool to network and things like that as well. So I think that's one thing that I would recommend students try to get more involved in, is just to go to more kind of academic conferences. Obviously, there's lots of other opportunities as well on campus here, whether it be clubs or student groups. We actually have a Brandon University Physical Education Club. It's called BUPEC, but they're great to get involved with as well. So I believe they're on Instagram, and it's a student-led group that gets kind of physical education students together, and they have a lot of opportunities and things like that as well. And if I was a phys ed student, I would be connecting with them to try to get more involved. One is be open-minded, so try new classes, or if I don't like English, but maybe you'll really like English, and so try it out. Or if you have to take exercise physiology, just be open-minded. Maybe you'll actually enjoy it, and you'll enjoy learning about metabolism. So be open-minded. I would say network as much as possible. So reach out to your professors. I know in this day and age, it's actually quite difficult to do, but I would still recommend, trying to reach out to them and network. In the future, hopefully we can go to conferences and things like that. And then probably number 3 is just, you guys are doing a great job already, but trying to get as educated as possible. So if there's any additional educational opportunities through either like Sport Manitoba, or again, conferences, or even just pursuing a master's degree, for example, I would highly recommend that, because that can open a lot of doors in the future.